In the heart of West Virginia, deep in Canaan Valley, we've gathered some of the brightest minds and visionaries of the Mountain State.
Where state pride stands as strong as Seneca rocks, where black water falls day and night. Deep in these hills, we've gathered current and future leaders to spark collaboration, unlock new opportunities, and elevate West Virginians forward.
So join us because the mountains are calling and we must go as we celebrate what it means to be a Mountaineer.
Welcome to the Almost Heaven Classic.
Wow. Thank you guys. I mean, seriously, this is pretty incredible. Please give yourselves a round of applause for even making it out tonight. This is really amazing. I think we can take a seat now, everybody. Yeah, thank you guys. So, Cooper will kind of get into some of the details of Mountaineer Media, maybe some of the ideas and the vision of what brought us here today. But a big shout out to our title sponsor, Star USA Federal Credit Union. They kind of, when we went to them about a year ago, we said, hey, we have this idea of putting on this weekend event, a Friday night networking event where West Virginians, really not even just from West Virginia, but all over the country, maybe even the world, are brought back home or maybe invited into West Virginia. We said we want to have them all collaborate, come up with, spark new ideas, come up with ways to connect with each other, and they were all about it. And so a big shout out to them. And of course, we are here for not just us and having a good time, but we are here for a charitable organization as well. The Almost Heaven Scholarship Fund helps get low-income students in West Virginia to a university of their choice. A couple have gone to Marshall University as well, and so if you've noticed, there are,
we got a couple.
A couple of West Virginia as well. West Virginia University, yeah. There's a map in the back that's got locations of where these students have gone. But if you were feeling generous tonight, there are QR codes scattered out throughout the room. There's a QR code in the pamphlet that you were given at the door. That is a donation link to allow you to give back and give to the Almost Heaven Scholarship Fund. The convenience fee will also be donated, so nobody freak out about the convenience fee. That's part of the donation. So thank you guys for coming. This really, really means a lot to us. Cooper?
Yeah, thanks, CJ. This is a little bit different than our Zoom podcast that we're normally used to.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. This is, you see people.
So we founded Mountaineer Media nearly 3 years ago on June 20th in West Virginia, on West Virginia Day, with the simple goal of connecting West Virginians through meaningful conversations about their Mountain State roots and honorable work that they do. Since then, we've had 120 incredible episodes. Many of the folks are here today, featuring the business leaders in business, politics, academia, nonprofit, creative arts, and more. Over the years, Mountaineer Media has grown into a small media agency that generates millions of views online. But we believe it's the good people of West Virginia are hungry for nuanced, pragmatic ideas and conversations about the state's complex and exciting opportunities. So why are we here today? CJ hinted at it. We founded this Almost Heaven Classic because we believe building these authentic relationships, having meaningful conversations and experiences can lead to progress. So there's a certain magic that we think takes place when we're physically together, right? COVID separated us. West Virginians, more so than any other people, when they come together, there's a certain magic. It feels like we're all friends here. It feels like we all knew each other and instantly had a connection. So we hope that this event acts as a birthplace for these new relationships, fresh ideas, stronger alliances. We've heard many folks having these conversations already to improve our beloved state. So by attending this inaugural event, you're joining us in investing in these businesses, treating your home state like a tourist destination, and spurring economic growth. So CJ, I'm going to toss it back to you now to introduce our wonderful panelists.
For what it's worth, I have note cards. Clearly, one of us is the tech guy, and one of us is not so much the tech guy, but going off what Cooper said, we're just so happy to have all of you, and we are so excited because we have an all-star panel along with us today, and this theme that we were trying to surround this keynote panel discussion around was investing in West Virginia. And there are just so many other ways. There's so many ways that people are investing in West Virginia, and our three panelists are doing such in a variety of ways. Sarah Biller, the Executive Director of Vantage Ventures, giving entrepreneurs and startups a reason to follow their dreams, go after their creative spirit, believe in themselves, take a risk on themselves, and see what happens. And they are doing that with Vantage Ventures. It's really beautiful. Brandon Dennison, the founder and CEO of Coalfield Development, they are teaching people how to get into the workforce, giving them the skills and giving them a reason to work hard and want to do good for the community. They're rebuilding parts of southern West Virginia as well. It's absolutely incredible. And then, of course, Brad D. Smith, the current president at Marshall University, former CEO of Intuit, and the founder of his family foundation, Wing to Wing, which is, again, not everybody is blessed with this opportunity in life to maybe have a successful profession, have a family, and Wing to Wing is giving people this opportunity, evening the playing field for West Virginians specifically and Appalachians, and what they are doing on top of your duties currently at Marshall. It's very phenomenal. So one more time for our panelists before we dive in. And just a format kind of reminder over the next 55 minutes or so, we're going to try and take you on this story through what these guys are doing. We want to talk broad about what's going on in West Virginia. Then we want to dive into what they are doing personally, maybe look forward to the future a little bit, give everybody some value from this conversation, some takeaways, and then close it up before we go outside and enjoy the bonfires. So that will be lit. Cooper, you kind of want to get us started here?
Let's do it. Brad, we'll start with you. What is it about this place that compels so many of us to act as if we're all unofficial ambassadors, right? West Virginians all wear their West Virginia pride very, very right on their chest, right? But more specifically, where do you draw maybe your motivation to get out of bed in the morning and work on behalf of West Virginia?
Yeah, first of all, Cooper, CJ, thank you for inviting me and inviting us. And I'm a proud member of the Thundering Mountaineers, as we call ourselves. Gordon and I coined that phrase as we travel together around the country telling the West Virginia story, which is great. And I'd say, let me give an example, and then I'll give you an answer. An example is what's happened here this evening already. Not only this packed room, but I had high school classmates of yours come up and say, I went to school with them. And I had Cooper's mom and dad come up and say, let me tell you about a true entrepreneur. Every other kid in the neighborhood was mowing 3 or 4 lawns. He figured out how to mow 40. He was getting referrals when he was a young man.
With the help of Logan right here in the front row.
So my answer to your question is really 2 things, purpose and potential. Purpose, why do I have this feeling that I have? Is because this is the house that built me. This is everything that I ever had the chance to go out in life and do is because of who's in this room, this state, the public education I received here, and the people who believed in me and saw something I didn't see in myself. And then potential is when I see West Virginia, I see 2 versions of us, the version of who we are and who we're capable of being, and I want to be a part of this team that introduces those 2 versions of West Virginia. That's why I get out of bed every morning.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Brad. Yeah, I'm ready to Brandon, what are your thoughts on this?
To build on that, I was talking earlier, Zach here from Braxton County, our family cemetery is in Braxton County. And I think something that's interesting about West Virginians is most of us know where we'll be buried from a young age. And so there's just a sense of place and just a depth of roots in Appalachia that's second to none. And that just drives a commitment for this place to realize its full potential. We know we can offer more. We're doing the best we can, but we can offer more with better investment, smarter investment, and it's pretty inspiring to be a part of it.
Thank you, Brandon. Sarah, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's really hard to follow these guys. It's really hard. But I think we share this similar sense of place and deep roots and where we're going to be buried. I'm one of those children whose parents very early on said, you're kind of weird. You're a math girl. You might need to go somewhere else. And I think they said it with great regret because where I'm going to be buried, I'll be the 12th West Virginia generation.
Wow.
I was just there at that cemetery over Memorial Day. And sorry, wow.
Yeah.
Well, you're close to home.
I'm close to home. But I did leave. I left for 20 years. And I was in Boston. And if you look at the city of Boston census for the last 20 years, at least in the beginning, there was one farmer. Even though I was in financial services and I was on the fixed income desk at some large investment houses, I was a farmer at heart because my grandmother, who gardened until she was 96, taught me independence, taught me about deep roots and the ability to grow, and I insisted that I had that in me always. So we're going to grow together. We're going to put the seeds in the ground here. You guys have started it. Look at this. And we're going to really show that West Virginia can flourish. The momentum is there. We have it in our bones and our blood. And so I echo the idea that the purpose is here, the principle, and the idea that we actually have the resilience and the grit that defines innovation and entrepreneurship and change in the world.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Are you guys still looking to cut some grass? It sounds like she's planting a couple seeds.
Well, the next question then for you guys is what maybe over the last 5 years has maybe changed? It feels like there's this momentum in West Virginia. Maybe we can speak about how we keep this momentum going, but all three of you all in the last 5 years, it feels like you've tripled down on your efforts in West Virginia. So maybe at like a personal and professional level, what in the last couple of years has really caused you to lean into West Virginia?
Coalfield development, we started in 2010, and this was right after the Great Recession of 2008. And I had been away for a little while from West Virginia. I did graduate school out in Indiana University in Bloomington. And the most discouraging thing was the cynicism that I encountered. And I'll skip ahead. I think there's a different feeling in the air right now than there was in 2010. But when I would pitch my idea, the initial idea was a construction company. And we had abandoned buildings throughout West Virginia. So we were going to hire local people, tear them apart piece by piece, reuse, resell, recycle the materials. And I pitched this to a local contractors association meeting in 2010. I was right out of graduate school. And I had this contractor, he pulled me aside, he cornered me to tell me my idea would not work. Because he said, young people don't want to work anymore. Everybody's lazy, everybody's on drugs. And it just broke my heart. This was a West Virginian, I'm a West Virginian, trying to do something good. I couldn't believe the depth of that cynicism. But when I got out in the community, there were very serious challenges. The opioid epidemic was just ramping up. We'd had a lot of broken promises, especially in the southern part of the state. So I started to understand where maybe that cynicism came from. And in some ways, there's just a different spirit in the air. And maybe we've gone through the stages of grief in some communities,
Sure.
that whatever the future looks like, it's going to be different from what the past was, but it can still be a great future. It might even be a better future than what the past was. And that's the biggest thing I've felt change since 2010. There's a sense of optimism that is so refreshing and so encouraging.
Absolutely. Brad, or Sarah, you felt that same way?
Brad, you go.
Yeah, so I would say, I think about the old adage, sometimes you don't choose the time chooses you. And when I think of West Virginia, we have always answered the call. We mined the coal. We forged the steel. We built the roads that carried the trucks. We fought the wars. Our president said we need a man on the moon. We produced Homer Hickam and the boys in October Sky that built the first rockets. Then they said we need to get him safely home. We built Katherine Johnson and the Hidden Figures who got him home. And then for about 30 years, people told us we didn't belong anymore, that we were yesterday's people. And then you go through a period of time where a lot has changed. And now you look at the problems coming out of COVID, where people want to live in a place where they can live, work, and play. They want to be in a place where if the car breaks down, people will be kind enough to stop and crafty enough to know how to fix it. This is our time. And it's our time to lean in, and we are leaning in, because we did work 5, 6, 7 years ago where we looked at ourselves from an outside view and said, where is West Virginia uniquely positioned to solve the world's problems? And they pointed us to cybersecurity, computer science, and data science. We have 2 of the best schools in the nation, ranked in the top in forensics and computer science. We also have amazing health sciences solving problems the world needs: neuro, children, heart, cancer at WVU, addiction, obesity, gerontology, rural health at Marshall, working together. We are advanced manufacturing. We know how to do things with our hands. Advanced energy. We've always been an energy state, but we're an all-the-above energy state. You think about aviation. All those things are a part of who we are, and that's what the world needs right now. So why do I get excited right now? Why do I see momentum? We're at a strategic intersection where the world needs us, and we know exactly how to do it because it's who we've always been.
I love it. Sarah, and you're empowering folks to build that vision, in Morgantown, in West Virginia, through Vantage Ventures. Maybe speak to 24 years, I think we're talking out there in the lobby, 4 years now with Vantage Ventures. What maybe gives you that sense of urgency, and how do you use that as motivation every day?
Yeah, I echo Brad's comments just now that the time is now, and there's not a minute to waste for West Virginia's success. What we see is the demands of the world. We're living in a fragile society, and West Virginians are not fragile. We're community-oriented, we're relentless, we're also really smart and pragmatic. I hate to do this, but if I may,
Please.
How many Vantage entrepreneurs are here in this room right now?
Ooh. That is amazing.
Right? We had an investor pitch day in October. $2.5 billion of capital showed up around the table and online for those entrepreneurs. You're competing with MIT entrepreneurs, New York, San Francisco, in West Virginia. It's now. We can close the gap. COVID was a gift to West Virginia. Capital became mobile. People believed in being able to take what would look like liabilities and turn them into assets. And it is our time. I agree completely. And I think the other thing is that the optimism has returned to us. We were incredibly important to the security and safety and industrial revolution of the world, and now we're just entering that next digital framework.
And if I could, CJ and Cooper, just to build on the points that both Brandon and Sarah made, we launched Ascend West Virginia a couple years ago, the remote worker program. The skepticism immediately kicked in. Who's going to want to move here? There's orange pylons out there on the interstate. I still can't travel turnpike. It's the way it was. My grandfather was. And we know, there's things we have to do to get better. But for the first 25 positions, more than 1 million hits to the website from 108 countries in all 50 states.
Wow.
We now have 170 ascenders here and their families. We're on our way to 1,000. And we have too many applications. We're processing them with algorithms just to try to figure out how to narrow down to the finalists. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
hate to do this,
No,
but
please.
of course we're family, so I can do it. We hired the first ascender who came here, and because she wanted to stay in West Virginia. Quintina, thank you.
Quintina.
And what a great hire.
I'm so sorry. I feel like a braggart, but because of this, we kept its talent.
She's not alone, by the way.
Yeah.
The best program outside of West Virginia has an 80% retention rate on remote workers that move. We have a 98% retention rate.
Oh my goodness.
One moved home because her mother was sick and she wanted to move back to where her mother was. So.
Wow.
I love it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this, CJ?
Well, you guys have talked about, in all three of you are in different areas, of course, and emphasize different things, but is there a singular problem? Do we need to rank the top down? What's most important? What can we solve first? What's next? Or is it almost sounds like it's a little more broad than that. There are just not so many problems that it's overwhelming, but there are several things that we are all trying to tackle at once, and let's just see how far we can get each one and maybe solve some issues along the way. Does there need to be a singular mission, a single statement, a mission statement of we are fixing this, or is it we're kind of fixing this and that along the way?
I like how when you were talking about what your podcast looks at, there's complexity and nuance. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of problem solving in the modern economy accounts for complexity and nuance. So Coalfield Development's in the workforce development space. West Virginia has one of the lowest labor force participation rates in the country. We've got to get that up to be competitive. We've got to inspire people who are on the sidelines to get back in the workforce and to contribute again and to believe in the opportunities that are here. We do that through something called the 33, 6, and 3 model each week. So it's a very holistic approach. What we realized was we can't just do job training, because what if there's not a job available in Boone County or Mingo County or McDowell County at the end of that training? We can't just do higher education, because a lot of people can't put their lives on hold and forego the paycheck while they do higher education. And we can't ignore that half of our folks are in recovery, a quarter are justice system involved. Many have a trauma-informed background. So 33, 6, and 3 is 33 hours of paid work, so it's a real job at a real company, 6 hours of higher education, often at a community college, so we're creating economic mobility, and 3 hours every single week for what we call personal development. It's just time to be in community, to earn trust, to form relationships, say what are the barriers to our well-being as people, and how can we overcome those barriers. So initially, when we iterated this back around 2010, a lot of the feedback was you're doing too much at once with 33, 6, and 3. But as we iterated the concept, it broke down. If you took away one of those components, the whole thing just fell apart. And so we just had to be willing to solve a couple different problems at once.
Yeah.
I've talked to, Brad has really been my mentor for the past 4 years.
Hey, mine
Once a
too.
month.
Me too.
Hey, I was going to say the same about both of you.
And now I lost my train of thought. Mentor.
33, 6, and 3.
Well, Brandon, I have a
multiple things at once.
I have a follow-up for you on that, honestly. We can move into the white lightning round. There might be some white lightning out by the bonfire.
Moonshine is not available right now.
But this is the white lightning round. Brandon, it's a good question. You're on your website, you have one of the core pillars, the fundamental, is diversify local economies so wealth creation can self-perpetuate, right? It's a big, complex sentence there, but basically it's how do we empower people to build and sustain wealth for themselves? And my thought there is we have to do that in some ways because West Virginia, geographically, we have mountains, we have haulers, we have small communities. I don't think we're ever going to have a Charlotte-sized city pop up in West Virginia. Our mountains, sort of prohibit that. But maybe if you could maybe elaborate on that, what systems in place, how do you empower local folks to build wealth in those spread out communities?
You just helped me remember. What we talked about was how can West Virginia leapfrog?
Yes.
So instead of just trying to play catch up all the time, what are those unique strengths, unique niches that we have in West Virginia that can help us leapfrog? And I think we're starting to see that with the cybersecurity. Water, clean water in the current global situation is a big deal. Diversified energy is a big deal. We have some creative comparative advantages in this state that we can realize, but we've got to do it from the bottom up so that we don't let extraction continue where the wealth that's here gets taken out of here and shipped elsewhere. We've got to create wealth here with local entrepreneurs and then circulate it locally so we can thrive as communities and not just help other communities thrive.
Is that a challenge in southern West Virginia where it's a different, ball game down there that you're playing? Every part of the state has a different battle that it's fighting, but in southern West Virginia in particular, creating this system of wealth, this cycle of being able to be self-sufficient, is that a challenge in itself? And how have you been able to tackle that?
I think it's a challenge. I think Marshall University is going to lead the way of a new economy in southern West Virginia, leading by example and leading through partnerships. It is challenging, and I think as a state, look, we've had a lot of really positive announcements. Most of them have not been in southern West Virginia, and so we have an obligation. Southern West Virginia has contributed so much to the state, to this country, sacrificed, really, and there's an obligation to invest, and I think we're going to do it. And growing up in southern West Virginia, I've seen Marshall be such a pathway of opportunity for so many southern West Virginians, and I'm excited for this new era.
And I'll just build. I think, first of all, it's an ecosystem. The most important letters in the words West Virginia are the first two. The most important word in our rally cry, "We are Marshall," is the first word. That's why we are Thundering Mountaineers. We have to play an orchestra. When you heard about these focuses in healthcare that WVU has, which is health and neuro and children and heart, and then we said we'll do addiction, gerontology, obesity, and rural health. We did that purposely because we don't need two of the same. We need to complement each other and be strong. And so that's what we're doing right now. And I would say that what the opportunity is when you go out to Silicon Valley, the most popular book out there is written by Angela Duckworth. The name of the book is Grit. It's a 30-year study on the number one predictor of success in pro sports and professional and anything, and it is grit. Grit is born from adversity. And when we actually had a Shark Tank event in 2016, we had Jennifer Garner come in, we had people, Chad Pennington, we did the guest judging. We flew out the winners to Silicon Valley. I took them to Meta. I took them to Google. I took them to Intuit, let the founders see their work. And when they left, all those founders said to me is, "Where do we get more of them?" I said, "Follow me." That's where we are. That is what we have in southern West Virginia. That's what we have in northern West Virginia, the Eastern Panhandle. We are built out of grit and grace, and that is what entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial companies want.
Brad, I'll toss you back a white lightning question here, Brad. So we had the opportunity to interview Wes Bush, a Morgantown native. He's the chairman of Northrop Grumman. And we discussed the relevance of artificial intelligence in a technology-driven world and its relation to West Virginia. You spoke earlier about cybersecurity. I saw the news out of Marshall. He believes that our state is actually well suited for these advancements because ultimately it's going to take individuals with character, integrity, emotional intelligence, things that West Virginians have in buckets to actually manage these artificial intelligence systems. So does that resonate with you? And then maybe further insight on this perspective of how do we get tech jobs in West Virginia? I know you're already doing it, but maybe speak to the fact that we're actually very well positioned for this sort of future in business and in the world.
It resonates completely, and I love Wes. He's an amazing leader. He's a great example of a West Virginian that went out and changed the world and hasn't forgotten where he came from. I think it's important to recognize technology, or in this case of AI, artificial intelligence, or now AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence or generative intelligence. It's really augmented intelligence. It doesn't replace human beings. It's never going to have the empathy, it's never going to have the EQ, it's never going to have the value system. We have to build that in now, or we're going to pay the price down the road. And you're not going to find stronger ethos than you do right here in West Virginia. We also are skilled with our hands. And the thing we have to realize is that in 1900, when you look at the U.S. Census, almost 50% of the nation listed their primary occupation as farmers. We were an agrarian country. This year, 2%. Yet we have food, we have full employment. We figured out how to adapt to the new technologies and still be able to thrive. And that's what I know West Virginians are capable of doing. So I think we are perfectly positioned. And the one thing I'll tell you is you don't have to be a coder to use ChatGPT. You actually have to know how to ask a question. And so you can ask ChatGPT to write you a line of code in Python to go get your favorite scores in NCAA basketball, and it'll actually write it for you. So West Virginians are great at asking questions. We're natural skeptics. Tell me how to do this. It'll come back. It's good.
I believe you wrote this question for me here tonight.
There you go.
Maybe at least it cleaned it up a little bit, right? It was your question. Anyway. Yeah.
Can I actually add a little bit to
Please.
Just a real life example that happened in West Virginia. So we have an entrepreneur, I don't know where he's sitting, but Carrie Landis, who has pioneered in this new application or new coding technique called low code, no code, which echoes what Brad said, that you don't have to be a coder anymore to build a technology company. You can be in a rural area and know how to join large blocks of code and actually develop your own company or your technology or put your payment rails or whatever. We were in the middle of an 8-week program with him where he was offering for free to entrepreneurs access to this low-code, no-code platform. And we're building companies. ChatGPT comes out in the middle of it. He codes that weekend an application that allows all those entrepreneurs to drop in ChatGPT to their technologies. Today, if you all know Jim Matuga, some of you may know, he launched a company with Carrie, 8 weeks. We had 8 companies launch in 8 weeks in West Virginia, unprecedented tech companies. And today, Carrie helped Jim get to a company called Storymaker, which uses ChatGPT to produce marketing pitches for small businesses, very inexpensively in about 30 seconds. He's right now in contention to serve the second largest bank, small business lender in the country with that product from West Virginia. Started with a no-code, no-code solution, an entrepreneur here in West Virginia who now knew how to do it, dropped in ChatGPT, and we may be the powerhouse that's going to let small businesses have marketing messages like never before. Right here. It's happening, people. It's really amazing.
Are there, to stray a little bit from the white lightning questions, are there harmful effects of AI, ChatGPT, and if you can relate them to West Virginia in particular, what would those potentially harmful, dangerous effects of the advanced technology that we have, what would they be? And any of you field the question.
I can't answer that. I feel a little bit like CJ with the note cards right now. Yeah, a whole lot of words. I don't know.
Keeps me on. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
I'm gonna pass.
Every gift has a downside.
Yeah.
But the problem is the bad guys are already using it. So if the good guys don't grab it and figure out how to embrace it, then we're going to lose.
Yeah.
And so and there is no good guy, bad guy. I'm not talking countries, politics, or anything else. I'm talking about those that want to use it for ill intent. So the thing that I can remember, I'm going to age myself, in 8th grade, we went from a slide ruler to a calculator. And I remember my teacher saying, there goes education. And then came the computer. Then came the smartphone, and I will admit, I could still remember my childhood friends' phone numbers that I had to do on the rotary dial, and I couldn't tell you my daughter's numbers because they're plugged into my phone. But I can do a lot more things that I couldn't do. And so what we have to do is race to embrace it, and then make sure that we are inviting in the right scrutiny early on to try to prevent and minimize the downsides. So right now in higher ed, the nervousness is appropriate. Will students have somebody like ChatGPT or something like ChatGPT write their essays?
Yeah.
But imagine what it can do to be an advisor or a tutor, which Khan Academy, Sal Khan has already done. He's built an application called Khanmingo, which literally helps K through 12 school students learn their homework by having ChatGPT be a tutor. So we can embrace the goodness and then try to minimize the downsides.
Yeah. I had a teacher tell me that cursive was going to be the way to write for a lifetime. I don't think she was quite right with that one. Anyway, yeah.
We'll leave the way, Brandon. Brandon, I got a question for you. So this is the vision for the future section here. So over the next decade, Brandon, I think I actually asked you this when you were on the podcast. And all three of these wonderful folks were on the podcast. We were honored to have them on. But I remember asking this, Brandon. I said, over the next decade, say this, we all keep working over the next decade, right? It's 2023, 2033. We look back. How will we know if we're successful? Like, what's the scorecard? What pillars of society can we measure? And what areas do you think that at least you're working on now that you'll be like, yeah, we did improve X, Y, Z?
Yeah. I think two things. One, being in the southern part of the state, a lot of people ask, what's going to replace coal? Mm-hmm. And I think it's the total wrong question. We don't want to go from being all one thing to being all one other thing. We want to have diversity of all kinds. We have economic diversity, cultural diversity, racial diversity, gender diversity. So I see in 10 years all different kinds of Appalachian people realizing their full potential, power, and purpose throughout this state. So it's a diversified economy with diverse communities thriving. An example of this becoming real, 2 years ago we formed something called the Act Now Coalition, Appalachian Climate Technologies Coalition. We competed against 500 other communities nationwide. We were one of 21 winners. We got the third biggest award in the country with a vision for leveraging the climate resilient economy for good. So often changes to green jobs or renewable energy are thought of as zero sum. And we think that we're going to be the losers in that zero sum game. Act Now is saying this can be all the above, grow the whole pie. Don't just fight over little chunks of the pie, grow the whole pie. Marshall and WVU partners in Act Now Coalition. Huntington Charleston, partners in Act Now Coalition. 50 industry partners, and our three largest unions, mine workers, carpenters, electricians, all on the same team with a vision for climate resilience in West Virginia, competed nationally, came out with nearly $100 million. And what's that look like in real terms? Solar Holler, the first solar company in southern West Virginia that we helped start, are now a part owner of, just topped 100 employees. These are IBEW, union employees, and we just announced a partnership to add 100 more jobs in the next 18 months.
Oh, wow.
So it's happening.
Sarah, maybe if you want to tackle that question, like how will we know if Ancient Ventures, the work we're doing now, and maybe just another question to kind of combine it with, I think folks falsely assume that you have to go to Silicon Valley to do this type of work, startup business, and maybe you could speak to some of that misconceptions about doing it here, but how will we know if Ancient Ventures is successful? How will we measure that? How will we see it?
Yeah, I think we've hit a little bit of the secular trends that we're in as a country, and that is that, of course, now individuals, very enterprising individuals, seek what we have here in West Virginia. I think you'll find that also those trends happening as people move to like the Salt Lake City area. I don't know. You're seeing a transition. So I think if we look at ourselves, what does success look like? It means that we have figured out how to create economic mobility and security and support for our emerging entrepreneurs, whatever how you want to define it, in the state of West Virginia, so people stay here, but we continue to welcome others more holistically. How many of you know that the state of West Virginia is the third largest business starts in the country? We're
Wow.
third. We're the fourth fastest growing economy by the National Bureau of Economic Research right now. We were sixth when we were last meeting. There's a powerful moment. We will succeed because we have continued to move ourselves forward. We've figured out a way to close our talent gap, to motivate capital to come. We measure ourselves a little bit like Silicon Valley. We want to create what's called a Series B economy here, which means if you stay and you grow your company, we can motivate $50, $75, $100 million of capital to come in and help you grow to the next 100 jobs. I think we have big ambitions to see that in West Virginia, and that's, if we get to half of that,
Yeah.
it won't kill us.
Brad, thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I'll just add a coda to what they said because it's perfect. I think it comes down to two words, prosperity and belief. Prosperity, if you look up the definition, is a state of thriving, flourishing, and good fortune. Everyone should have access and believe they have a path to prosperity. And the second is believe. There's two kinds of people in this world, those who have to see it to believe it, and those that know if they believe it, they'll see it. In 2018, a group of West Virginians met in California with both universities represented. And we said, we're going to go study Ireland, Israel, India, France, Pittsburgh, Detroit, figure out what they did, and we're going to become the demonstration project for the world. We're going to become known as the startup state. At that time, we were not number 3 and number 4. We were where we always found ourselves, 49 and 50. Think about what's happened from 2018 to 2023. We believed it, and now it's happened. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's unbelievably powerful. So how will we measure success? We are the demonstration project that everyone comes here and says, how did they do that in West Virginia?
Yeah.
I hate to tell a little secret on that meeting. I had the pleasure of being there. Brad, don't kill me by saying
That's
this.
okay.
But there were naysayers in that meeting.
Yeah.
You remember, right? They were like, don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Like, you're here, you're quizzing us, some of the finest some of the most, actually, influential venture capitalists in the world, and leaders in industry, we were still quite involved in that. And we sat in this room, and they were like, yeah, don't get your hopes up. And you know what West Virginians did? We went home.
Yeah.
And we did it.
What do you say to those people, the
Watch it.
naysayers? What is the response? How do you shut them down? How do you? We're surrounded by so many positive people in here that I think would all be very, they'd be willing to jump to the front of the line and say West Virginia is getting better. This place is growing. There is a movement here. But for those that might be willing to jump up and say, hey, yeah, hold on, not so fast. What do you say to them?
We don't. Well, we do. Bless your heart. Bless your heart, and then we get busy doing. Because that's what we've always done. We get busy doing. Look, when I showed up in California 20 years ago, they had tried to get rid of my accent early in my career. It failed. They told me my career was over. I decided it was actually a feature, not a bug. I end up in California. People would come up to me over a cocktail hour and say, how do you feel your education in West Virginia stacks up? And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, like with our schools. Well, what schools did you go to? Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Stanford. Ooh, those are nice schools. I said, you know what? I have learned something. I learned that what we learned in school is the same as yours, but there were some differences. Yours costs $150,000 more, and we have a better football team.
Saturdays are a little more exciting.
A lot more exciting.
Yeah, a lot more exciting. Absolutely.
We did have Meet Me in the Blue Lot t-shirt, CJ, on our website.
I think we even sold shirts and hats that said bless your heart.
Yeah.
That's what we say, right?
That's it.
Bless your heart.
Well, we're bringing it on home here. Brad, I'll come back to you with a question because I think it's we're picking up right off we left off, is that I think all three of you have something in common. It's that you're action-oriented folks. And I think we can all resonate with folks that, even West Virginians, that say, we ought to do this, or what they need to do is this, or if only we had this. And I personally, it's almost intolerable for me to be around those kind of folks. Because I would rather be like, what are we doing to do it? Let's do it now. Let's start. Let's break it. Let's figure it out and go from there. So, folks here tonight, leave this place thinking, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm going to start this. I'm going to make that call, that pitch, that collaborative effort, that new investment. The question there in that long statement is, how have you maybe managed to condition yourself to think in terms of solution-oriented and not just problem identification oriented, because that's great. We can identify the problems, but how do we say, all right, here's step one, here's step two. So I'll let you kind of start there and share thoughts on that.
Yeah, I will tell you what has been critical, at least for me personally, and I think we've acted against one another, is you have to surround yourself with great people. And I can't say enough about the people of West Virginia, and of course the Vantage team, because every day you get up and you take great joy in the success of others.
Sure.
That's a hallmark of West Virginia. Very much oriented towards what can I do for you and reaching into your community. That is the baseline in our secret sauce in West Virginia, is that orientation towards action, but action in the service of others. And I think that's a critical differentiator. There's a couple people here who I think have never really been to West Virginia that I met tonight. And
Welcome.
Oh, welcome.
and they're here, and I think what we've done to them is give them a warm welcome. It says, you will be supported here. You can follow your dreams, and a lot of people will look up. So it is an action orientation,
Yeah.
but it's a recognition that others want to help.
And Brad, I think I gave Sarah your question, but maybe share thoughts on that as well. Like, how have you conditioned yourself to be like, I'm going to start it, I'm going to do it, Family Foundation, wing to wing? How have you maybe, and folks can take home nuggets, how they can build, I'm going to start thinking more of solution-oriented and action-oriented?
Yeah, I think you have to get past this notion of you have to have the right answer or you have to have an idea. In fact, when you interview all the startups that are now mega platforms out there, Facebook, all the others, they failed on their first idea. They had a plan B, a plan C, they learned how to pivot. So one of the things I always tell people is it's a misnomer. Venture capitalists don't fund business plans. They fund people and proof. They want to see that you have the perseverance and the willingness to get up and dust yourself off, and they want to see demonstrated proof through a minimum viable product that you built. So Thomas Edison wasn't wrong years ago. He said invention is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. That's who we are. And so what I love about what we try to talk about in West Virginia is we brought design thinking here. Design thinking is the Silicon Valley secret sauce that says fall in love with the problem, come up with at least 7 different ways that you're going to test how to solve that problem. Not 1, 7 different ways. Run experiments and double down on the one that works and shut down the ones that don't. And that's the best way to get things going. So how do we get it going? Less talk, more do.
Love it.
Brandon, final thoughts?
When we started Coalfield Development, my best friend from high school joined the division and got a contractor's license. So I had some of the business skills, the finance skills. I didn't really have the hands-on skills like I wanted to or like I should as a West Virginian. Chase complimented that. Before we hired our first crew, we established organizational values. We wrote them down, and we literally signed them with a pen, the 2 of us, and we put them up. And the very first organizational value was no complaining or whining. Yeah. And so I think in West Virginia, we get beat up a little bit, and sometimes there can be a bit of an inferiority complex. But what are we going to put our energy into? Are we going to complain and whine that people are looking down on us, that we have a slower economy? Or are we going to jump into action and do something about it? And every minute we spend complaining or whining is a minute that could have been going into iteration and problem solving and building resilience and keeping moving forward. And so still today, you can see the values up on the wall. Yeah. It starts with no complaining or whining.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, one more question before we wrap this up. When you look to the future, what is it that all 3 of you are maybe looking forward to the most? What leads you to believe that West Virginia is going to make it? What makes you feel good inside? What gives you confidence that West Virginia is going to leapfrog in all of these different industries and sectors? What are those things that you guys kind of think about day to day? Sarah, go ahead and start. Yeah, that's a good thing though. Yeah.
I think there's a lot, but I think we have to recognize that for us to continue to grow forward, we have to have that confidence. Again, what we see today, and this room is a great example of energy. You really couldn't get through the crowd, one each other, one in front of one another. But I think moreover, we can't look at our liabilities any longer. Those are assets to the world when you see problem solvers wanting to come in and commit to innovation, or conversely, us to solve our own problems. And so I think for me, it is a future that reminds West Virginians exactly who we are. We did mine coal. We did. And it's an amazing legacy
Unprecedented collaboration. I really, even just since 2010,
What was the first word?
unprecedented collaboration. I see people working together in this state like never before, and I think that's what's gonna get us where we're going.
Yeah, and I'm going to say what inspires me is the next generation. I have not seen this kind of talent, the quality of the value system, the things they've had to persevere and come through. They're strong, they're amazing people, and that's what's going to build this state. And what's different from maybe what it felt like when I left 36 years ago is you don't have to leave for the coast to get a job. You can now live here and work remotely. You can build the business right here because we have the ecosystem set up to actually allow you to get the support you need to grow your business. And I will finish with one last thought building off of this collaboration. If you haven't seen the video, The Wisdom of Geese, it's a beautiful 2.5-minute video on YouTube. And it describes why geese fly in the formation they do. They fly in a V because they can travel 70% further when they fly together. If one drops down too much wind resistance, they can't travel that far. What's amazing is you see them flying in a V, and first you hear the honking, and you think they must be complaining. But not. Actually, they've studied them, and that's like them saying stroke, stroke, stroke. They keep the pace going. The one in the front is not the leader. They can only stay in that position for about 10 minutes, and if you watch the goose will drop back, and another one moves up. And what's really amazing, when one gets sick or weak, it drops down, and 2 others drop down with it. We were raised by communities. We are strong because we are West Virginians. We are Thundering Mountaineers. And that's what inspires me. We have not forgotten who we are, and our children came up with those values, and now we've brought the world here so they don't have to leave. We're going to be the demonstration project for the rest of the world. God bless West Virginia. Woo.
Only at the Almost Heaven Classic are you also getting goose facts. Guys, thank you so much. Please give it up for our panel one more time.